Day 4 of Detroit Lions training camp is complete. We have observations, so let's react to them. Welcome everybody to another video. Glad you guys are here. We're back with another training camp reaction video. And today we're going through day 4, the day before the pads come on, and then Saturday they open up to the public. I'm actually going to be there on Saturday. Super pumped about that. I won't be there like every day this year. In years past, I was pretty close to that, if not every day. But of course not this year because tickets were such a disaster to get. Unless y'all got tickets, but they were such a disaster to get this year. However, I will be there Saturday, so I'll have some in-person notes that I'll give you. I'm not sure how we'll do that. Live stream video? I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out. Of course, we have these observations by the media that was there, so shout out to them for giving us those observations. And we're going to talk about those, react to those. However, I'm also, of course, going to expand on a few things, just some thoughts that caught my mind when reading through some of these notes from today's practice. Now, unfortunately, we always have to start off with the injury updates. There is some positives today, but as always, there's some negatives. And we'll start with the biggest one first. Terrion Arnold reportedly dealing with a calf strain. He left practice today, as well as Derek Barnes. It sounds like Derek Barnes is going to be okay with a hand injury. That one doesn't seem super significant, but for Terrion Arnold, apparently they're going to take this slow, and that seems like the absolute right approach, especially right now. It's not like we need him in a week or something, so I expect this one to take a little while. I know this can range from days to weeks, potentially months. Hopefully it's not that significant, and just by that report, it doesn't seem like it's that, but taking it slow does make sense because you don't want that kind of injury, one where we're rushing it back when we don't need to the point where it's not completely healthy, different part of his body is vulnerable, and now it leads to a more significant injury. That's what the Lions, of course, are trying to avoid here. So taking time with this makes sense. It's unfortunate because right before pads come on, and so far it's been great, seemingly. The clips we've gotten, what we've heard from Kelvin Shepard saying that, hey, he came in like a different man, the body type, but then also the way that he was able to process so fast early on for the Lions. He's saying that he's watching film every day during the offseason. Because of that, it also gives you a little bit of like, okay, we can be a little patient here. You love him, have him out there, but let's definitely be patient with this. Plus, we've been a little bit thinner at cornerback anyways. And just as a side note, one of the weird things, it seems to be the only thing people get caught up on is the holding penalties or the flags for Terrion Arnold, and that's the growth, like penalties versus no penalties. And that was a growth point, right? He got better on that through the year. But I'm even looking at things like this, right? Him watching film every day. It's like, hey, now you're the cover 3 corner, right? The number 1 goes inside. You have to stay on top of the 1. Now the new number 1 is the wheel route, right? Once he breaks outside, now he's the new number 1, and we're no longer on top of that. Plays like this, these are the kind of things that I can point to as growth for Terrion and other positions. These are the kind of things that also need to get that attention. Positive news that we do have, though, is that we are getting Stanley Thomas Oliver back, returned to practice today, taken off the NFI list. He had been working with trainers, as well as Broderick Martin. I think he was out for a day, and we definitely can use the interior defensive line depth. So there's some positives. And on a side note, Jamar Jefferson reportedly signed with the Tennessee Titans. So as of now, he's with the Tennessee Titans, and I just want to say congratulations. I'll definitely be rooting for you. I still rock the Jamar Jefferson shirt, and I still will. So hopefully that ends up working out for him. Maybe at some point he's back as a Lion. I don't know, but as of now, he's a Titan, so congratulations there. Okay, with that, let's get into some of these observations, and let's start with the offensive line, of course. Tate Ratledge, today the changeup was he went to right guard, Graham Glasgow to center, signing that extension to play the right guard position. And for Tate Ratledge, he spoke on playing center today, which seemingly didn't have much experience doing before he got here, right? We mentioned it in practice when it was kind of brought up, but for him, not really much there. It just was there was injuries, so he got some snaps there. If they needed to go that direction, they could have. Of course, they didn't go that direction at Georgia, but he knew was on the table that this could be the transition that he made once he got here for the Lions. When he was asked, do you even like playing center? He said, I just like playing football, right? Just excited to be on the field. And for Graham Glasgow, getting those reps at center, something that he said he had worked on during the offseason, in case they need to put me at center. And I would assume with the last day of pads, it just makes sense to give him reps there because the Lions have been cross-training across the offensive line, and they typically do that anyway just to have options. I mean, right now, the backup battle between Kingsley Eguakon and Michael Neese, that continues to rotate. Today, it was Kingsley Eguakon as the number 2 center. Michael Neese is his 3rd. And then, of course, at the guard spots, we have a great battle there. Everybody's moving around. Tristan Colon battling at left guard. And then at the tackle position, Giovanni Manu taking some reps at guard. Dan Skipper getting reps at guard. We've seen him play guard in a game. So everybody right now is rotating. I don't think it means a ton as of now. And also from a takeaways perspective, very difficult to get much without pads on. It'll still be difficult during training camp. Preseason, I think, where we really get good answers. As Tate Ratledge mentioned that, the game just happens faster. Of course, at the center position, of course, not having that free hand because guys know how to keep that hand down, that snapping hand. Having great veteran leadership around him has seemingly been a massive it positive, and that starts with Graham Glasgow being able to help him and DJ Reader on the opposite side of things. Sounds like that's going on across the board, which is great. Like, we think about the veteran, how that could be positive. Well, you have to have the right people for that to seemingly really get everything out of it. Got some help from DJ Reed when he broke up a pass today, according to Jameson Williams. So big positives across the board there. That's good team chemistry. That's good team bonding. What I want to get to is Jack Campbell, because while we didn't really have any observations today from Jack, we have heard some good things about what he's done in coverage. We talked about him from the slight video clips that we did see, but we did hear from Jack Campbell, according to Jared Goff, with getting everybody aligned. We heard Calvin Shepard talk about, hey, this is your defense, right? Like, this is your defense. He's been at the hip with Jack Campbell since he's gotten here, so especially now without Alex Anzalone as of now with the hamstring injury, like, this is Jack Campbell's defense. Wants to make that clear for him. I thought that he looked a little bit more, a little bit lighter just for man coverage matchups potentially in this upcoming season, but how much that he brought last year, right? Just his football intelligence, but also his ability as a run defender, what he brought to the table for us, the durability, the reliability, ability to play with really whoever you put next to him. And when I just went back to kind of refresh myself on some Jack Campbell, watching him run around, watching him do work in coverage, not to say everything was perfect, but the assignments that he was put in, just massive strides from a year ago. As a rookie, he's playing on the ball, and you're kind of like, all right, this feels a little bit out of position. Other times, it doesn't feel like he's finding routes in zone coverage. Didn't feel like he was playing as fast in a lot of those spots. And then last year, he took off. What he did as a run defender, and then, of course, also his just comfortability in coverage and being smart to the assignments that they gave. And I would assume that this year he's going to want to expand on what he can bring to the table there. And there was a two-play sequence that reminded me. We watched this during the year, but man, it stuck with me, and I just want to showcase it. A two-play sequence against Seattle, where on the first play, he's reading through a two-man route concept. He's in zone coverage, and you can see that he reads through it. He steps down underneath the receiver, but he allows the reception. He's kind of patient to dive and break on the ball here. Allows reception, then he makes a tackle. And as you see that, you're like, man, I kind of wish he was just more aggressive to attack. Like, hey, see it, break, and then just jump on it. Now, there's a downside to that, and it happened. The fact that he went from the first time kind of letting it happen in front of him, letting the catch happen, and just being a little bit slow maybe to react to it, to the next time he gets a very similar setup, he jumps on the route underneath. Unfortunately, the play breaks down, quarterback gets out of the pocket, receiver gets behind him, and now he ends up giving up a reception. But if everything works out perfectly there, you would say, wow, that's great how in the same game, the next time he's seemingly targeted, he's jumping on that route. And I think that's a great example of in-game. You can tell that a guy is just learning, he's picking it up, he's adjusting the football intelligence to feel the instincts from that player, just improving. You can visibly see it. And I thought that was just a great two-play example. Even though neither of them went incredibly well, it was a great example of kind of the growth of Jack just during last season alone. But then you watch him and you just remind yourself of like, man, he was really impactful in zone, right? The Lions, of course, liked his movement. You see the body control when you watch him, but the ability to play with a lot more depth, it felt like he was very rangy. Again, the body control was a huge part of that because you could trust him deep down the field. But on top of it, the way that he would balance the quarterback's eyes, he took up a lot of space underneath. You didn't necessarily see the most twitchiness in terms of the closing burst. And again, he's not the longest player either, so he will allow some receptions. But just that feel for spacing and zone, the cloud, a lot of vision was so noticeable when you go back to this past season. For Keith Cooper, who's definitely gotten some love, Keith Cooper doing a lot of work across the defensive line. Sounds like he's really just repping right now because of all the injuries behind Pat O'Connor within the second team. So we heard that he was kind of stepping in behind him. Not only is he playing everywhere, he's also seemingly been very involved in a lot of crucial spots early, and we kind of know that by what Tyleik Williams said. Like, Tyleik Williams called Keith Cooper essentially his best friend right now, two rookies that are coming in at the same time, and how they've kind of rotated across from each other, right? Like, okay, he'll come in for rundowns, I'll come in for pass downs. And there's been a lot of that going on. And even Keith Cooper pointed out how, hey, they wanted interior rush, and that's what I'm bringing. And the Lions have dabbled in a lot of the versatility across the line of scrimmage, which, again, Keith Cooper had a unique body type coming out. He was freakishly long, about 35-inch arms, 6'3", 280 pounds. He looked a little bit more top-heavy than necessarily bottom-heavy, so I didn't necessarily view him as a defensive tackle, and I don't think the Lions necessarily do either, but as like a big defensive end, which is essentially what he was at Houston. I mean, he played the stand-up role. He could play outside of a tackle, and then, of course, you can step him inside of a tackle, let him get penetration, let him get a field, and it feels like that is tapping into this is what this player is kind of meant to do. But when I hear that and I think about what the Josh Paschal role is and how I was excited to see what that could turn into, when you just think about pass downs alone and the opportunity that he's going to have in preseason, the opportunity he's going to have training camp / preseason when it's 3rd down and 8, and you put Keith Cooper over a guard, and you just see what he can bring to the table there. It is an excellent opportunity for him to show, like, I can be a real problem on the inside because those guys are valuable, right? Even if it's just for that role, that could keep a player like that around. That could surprise people, get you on a team depending on where the health is at, because, again, that was Levi. Now there's no Levi. Josh Paschal, he's missing time, right? And it's going to be a little bit there. So who is that guy? Pat O'Connor. Like, he's battling guys like Pat O'Connor who could step in and play some nose tackle. Kai Wingo's missing time. Like, there's an opening for Keith Cooper. So it's like if you can find a role where you just get enough, I feel like, on the base downs, the first and second downs, where he's comfortable and it makes sense for him. And I think that is kind of that big D end role or in that 4-eye role, right? If you could find that where it's just he's consistent enough where it's like, okay, we can keep him around because if we have to go to him for that, someone gets banged up, we can trust him there. But then on pass downs, he actually brings good value to the table, especially early in the season as a rusher. That could shock a lot of people this year, and I think that he's capable of doing it. I'm just very curious to see how it shakes out. Can his bull rush actually translate in the NFL? Because I don't know that it can necessarily. Can he sustain that into the backfield if he's working alongside the interior in the NFL? Because what he always showed me was good leverage off the ball. You get into your pads early. The length was always so beneficial. I thought he was great in space. He had that closing ability. He could track guys down. He was super rangy as a finisher, and he would play into the length. He was also really good, I thought, with scheme recognition, the offensive line scheme, run scheme, positioning himself very quickly, and playing with that toughness to get the early knockback, live behind the line of scrimmage as a run defender. But it's just like, what do we have as a rusher here, right? How much variety is there? How much true juice is there? Can he really create consistent walkback opportunities? Does he have enough slither to be very slippery on the interior? Does he have enough with his hand usage to create a lot of different counter moves? Like, how much do we really have here beyond just like as an effort rusher? Because I think so much of his game is the length and that ability to separate and create space between him and an offensive lineman. And consistently being able to work on the interior is going to be a little bit unique for him. But if he can show that ability, there's definitely a spot potentially that could be open for him. Speaking of that, Nate Lynn, who we've heard a lot of good things about to this point, working as a backup edge rusher for us, and even Kelvin Shepard, he was the guy that spoke on Nate Lynn, showing the flashes as a rusher this past year. But as he pointed out, something that we've brought up here many times, it's going to be about, hey, you have to show me on first and second down. You can set a hard edge. You can stand in there against the run. Like, that's what I need to see. That way you can flash. Because as he pointed out, Kelvin Shepard, that is, this guy's got gifts as a rusher. Athletically speaking, he's got gifts. Needs consistency, not flashes. And it starts with that first and second down ability. And I love this saying because it takes me back to the beginning. It takes me back to the Todd Wash days. It takes me back to the earn the right to rush the passer. Just that emphasis of it still does start here. You have to bring that first. Now, that's not to say that we necessarily ever really went too far away from that, and it's like, hey, you have to be a great run defender because otherwise we can't keep you. Because if you think about it, if he's not going to be a starter anyway, but he brought great value as a third down rusher, it's like, hey, you just keep him for that alone. And I think the Lions kind of did that last year with a guy like James Houston trying to figure it out, but they were always still trying to figure out what that role is going to be. Just that mindset, I think, is where it needs to get back to for sure, is earn the right to rush the passer. Stop the run first. You have to show me that you have that ability. And I think clearly Lions went after that again in this year's draft, drafting Ahmed, who Shepard tried to kind of pause the expectations a little bit, like of really just the idea of putting too much on his plate as a media and like expecting way too much. It's like, first off, this guy, where he was picked in the draft, that really, I don't think should be an issue. The guy was a 6th-round pick. But on top of that, like the idea that he's the answer, he even specifically said that, like, this guy started playing football 6 years ago. So I do like that he kind of curbed that. I think that's crazy to hope that, like, it'd be fantastic if he was, but to think that he's going to be that year one is kind of wild, and that can happen. Like, I do it all the time. I get very excited about rookie draft picks, and you start to be like, well, this guy, he's going to do that. Like, I did it last year with Sione Vaki. Even though it's not really a spot for him to do that, it's just like, I just want to see this guy play. He was that incredible as a rusher where I'd get to that point, be like, yeah, that guy opposite of Hutch year one, watch out. But, of course, what he fits into is what we just talked about, which is set the edge, stop the run. Even Kelvin Shepard pointed out he wants to see him with pads on because that's his game. And I think everybody's going to be very excited to see that. That guy should be laying some thuds, and you should honestly feel it, I would assume, from the bleachers a few times when he's entering into contact, and that's where things hopefully are going to shine for him. And then those second effort, the run-to-pass transitions, that's where everything could hopefully take off for him. Speaking of things taking off, it's not, man, you're just hearing a lot of good from this guy, Eric Hallett. All right, I'm really believing right now. Okay, I was believing like it was possible this guy could shock a lot of people, but man, Eric Hallett just continuing to rep at cornerback because of injuries, I truly only think it's going to help him. And again, it sounds like today he's repping at corner, but the fact that he had an interception on Jared Goff, on Jamison Williams, speaks to the reps that he's getting. Now, that doesn't mean it was first team, it could be second team, and it sounds like it was because they'll do that. But the fact that he had an interception against that unit, still fantastic, trying to squeeze in a tight pass on the sideline. I think it was a comeback route from what I've read. I assume it was somewhat of zone coverage, but maybe not, where he was just playing top down, read it, jumped it. And if it really was a deep comeback route that we're trying to fit in a tight window, that does speak to the expansion of a Jamison Williams route tree in the detail and putting all of those opportunities on his plate, because year one, I would have said that's just not the route for him, and you could see that the struggle to separate out of those types of breaks, but that's where the expansion of his game would need to take place. And Eric Hallett has that skill set. So now it's more so than just not only do they trust to give you a look at cornerback when this guy's been a safety, but also the fact that he's making plays and, of course, takeaways trumps kind of everything here in the sense that Kelvin Shepard brought that up. Like, that's been an emphasis. Knock the football out. We have to get the ball back. Lions forced 24 turnovers in the regular season. That was 10th most in football, but only 13 forced fumbles and 7 recovered, which would have put them at tied for 17th. And that's been an emphasis. And today, currently, they jarred a few balls loose. Raekwon Williams ended up tracking down Kai Robichal. So Boodle had a forced fumble on Jacoby Keeney-James, who has had a really strong start to camp. It sounds like the undrafted free agent out of UMass, which is the receiver that I'm personally very high on. It sounds like Jackson Meeks also did some good things as well today. I think at safety, you wonder a little bit about his range, and the versatility can still be there, but he was coming from a defense at Jacksonville that in the preseason at least played a lot of single high safety, but in the 2 deep spots, I really liked him. I really liked him there because I didn't think you had to test his range as much from sideline to sideline, and his ability to kind of read the route concepts was super noticeable. He felt very smart, right? His ability to pick up in red zone situations, play really fast, and then the athleticism was just super noticeable. The short area quickness, the ability to step down on routes, pick guys up, pick up backs. It just felt effortless in those spots. So if he's actually translating well to corner, and I guess we'll get a better sense as we continue forward here, I really think he's going to be a problem to keep off this roster. He's going to be difficult to keep off this roster with the openings that there could be in the back end, specifically if you list him as a safety. The Lions value that versatility so much, and if they continue down the path, which they have in the past of playing a lot of man coverage, someone that could do that still works for safety, that still works to keep that guy around. Now, he'll still have to show that flexibility to also still be a rangy safety, I would assume, in the back end, but it doesn't hurt. Ian Kennelly had a pass breakup today, another undrafted free agent, working with Mo Norris, Avonte Maddox in the slot, in the nickel with that second team is kind of what they've continued to rotate into a little bit here. So I'm interested. I wonder if Eric Hallett does potentially transition to a full-time outside cornerback, and could he upend like a Rock Ya-Sin or Stanley Thomas Oliver and shock everybody, a Khalil Dorsey, who's banged up for a little while now, but it sounds like, he's going to be the fastest guy back, but even still, that's going to be some time here. Maybe he upends somebody and surprises there. That flexibility definitely can't hurt when you're just trying to find any way to get your way onto the roster. Speaking of getting onto the roster, Shane Zylstra, Pride of Detroit, said a lot of good things about Shane Zylstra, his consistency to this point in training camp, the way that he's winning, specifically as a receiving threat. He's always had that as a run blocker. That was kind of the next step for him. I thought last year got a little bit better, but that tight end 3 battle is so wide open. Shane Zylstra doing well in camp doesn't surprise me because I feel like he's always done that. Every time I've been there, I feel like he's been good. Every time I've seen him in person, he's felt good. Last year in the preseason, he had 6 receptions on 8 targets for the Lions for over 40 yards. He just didn't really do much during the regular season, had about 50 passing snaps, had 1 reception on the year. So it is a battle for tight end 3. It actually sounds more so like Brock Wright's being very involved in the passing attack, but as of now, I don't doubt at all that he has a leg up in terms of this battle for Shane Zylstra. Definitely as a pass-catching threat, because I really don't think out of all of the guys that we brought in beyond our top 2, any of those tight ends has shown me anything to truly believe that they can compete with Shane Zylstra as a separator. Especially it's just like, hey, put him man-to-man, separate level 2. I don't think any of those other guys have put that on film consistently, like, hey, this is going to be a guy that can compete with him. Those guys will now shine when this starts. Pads come on, contact starts. So now is where the battle should shrink. Or Shane Zylstra continues to separate himself and continues to show that he can get open, and his blocking ability is something that the Lions really start to buy into here. Because if they're going to keep a tight end 3, this is where those guys begin to shine preseason in these spots, and versatility in different spots you can align him, and you would think that would start to close. Because as of now, it makes a ton of sense that Shane would separate as a pass catcher. That just made sense there. Speaking of separation, Dominic Lovett apparently had a fantastic grab on the sideline, one-handed grab, great body control in the air, but they weren't sure if he got his feet down. And, of course, the sideline defensively was saying he didn't. I'm actually curious to hear about that because I thought that was an issue in college, like understanding where he was on the sideline, the feel for the sideline. I thought that was an issue for him to consistently make those grabs, and that's something I wanted to see translate. Hey, that's actually the element that really shouldn't be overlooked within that example, even though I didn't see it. Maybe we'll get an example of it because, to me, he could always track a football pretty well. I thought in college that he had really nice body control, right? Above average body control, strongly above average body control, and that kind of feel to his game. But it was like, can he finish in those spots, right? Is he going to get his feet down? That was always something that was a question mark for me, is that feel on the sideline. Did he have that toe drag swag, as they put it? So I don't know. That's actually a big question for me, but it is good. I don't feel like I've heard much bad from Lovett, and it seems like every time I see him, he's catching passes. So don't got a lot of knocks to go along with that. I'm so pumped to see Lovett. I thought he'd be a handful to deal with and in one-on-ones, and I I feel like we haven't gotten that kind of love to this point, but it all sounds like the defensive backs are doing a terrific job. Even subtly, I think Shepard kind of alluded to, like, just kind of like throwing it in there. Like, that is a strength. Like, that's the strength here, is the back end of this team, right? At safety, but also at cornerback. And the injuries, unfortunately, are piling there. Hopefully Stanley Thomas Oliver getting back gives us some juice back to that room. But, man, I'm trying to let people know, man, that secondary is nasty. It's deep. It's nasty. That is the best secondary by far to me in the Brad Holmes era, and it definitely has a chance to be the best in football. Of the rookie receivers, Jared Goff did give some love to Isaac Tesla in the sense like when he was kind of asked about him, so he was forced to. But Isaac Tesla did say that what he likes to do, he catches the ball away from his body. But he's young, he's young, he's learning like all these other young guys. He does catch the ball away from his body, away from his frame, and he's a big body, right? So he's got that massive catch radius you can throw to. I'm glad that stands out because it's definitely something that stood out in college. So the fact that it's standing out in the NFL is a positive, right? Good things about your game translating is good, right? Like, so if that's something that you bought into, is like, hey, he had a really good note today for blocking. Oh, a screen to go for a huge gain. And Jahmyr Gibbs had a big reception that broke for a touchdown in team drills we hear today. Those are things that translate well from college to the NFL. If you did it well in college, you want to hear that it translates. And for Tesla, that's something he did well. He caught everything. Seemingly really caught everything, caught with his hands. He does have that big catch radius that did show up. The body control was outstanding in college. So if that is translating, that's a big positive. Hopefully that continues, that the good things translate, and we'll work on the other things as we continue forward here. This is what he said about Aiden Hutchinson. And multiple people brought this up, how Jared Goff said Aiden Hutchinson's a beast, and how Kelvin Shepard said Aiden Hutchinson looks better than he did last year. He didn't want to put any like stats to it or anything like that. And of course, getting the pads back on mentally, taking contact more consistently, like how you can do, because without pads, you can't go to the ground. So how is that mental block for him? He said that he looks better than he did last year, and it was a whoa the first time that he saw Aiden Hutchinson, which is unreal. Like, if Aiden Hutchinson is like if Aiden Hutchinson got off to a start like he did last year, like, give him the Comeback Player of the Year award at that point. There's no need to wait. That's insane if he looks anything like that to begin this upcoming season. That'd be unreal. So, hey, maybe you get your bets in on that. Maybe don't, though, because I'm not good with betting advice. But I'm just saying, Aiden Hutchinson Comeback Player of the Year, it makes a ton of sense there. This doesn't shock me, though. To be honest, it doesn't. Like, at one side, it's like, that's unreal. Always going to stand with me. When you saw him at Michigan, it was, this guy's going to work. Like, there's no like, oh, but if it doesn't, it's like, no, he's going to work. But not only is he going to work, that's easy. He was the 2-pick. But he's going to keep getting better. You just don't see a guy that's not going to keep, because he kept getting better. At Michigan, he had his mentality showed off just by watching him. I didn't have to talk to Hutch at all to know when you watched him at Michigan, like, this guy is just going to keep getting better. There's just something different about this dude. Last note here for Kelvin Shepard would be, schematically speaking, how he still wants to stay aggressive, just making things look the same pre-snap and post-snap and doing it calculated. I personally have no issues with this. If you look at Casey Rogers from Tampa Bay, because I think about teams playing fast, I think of Tampa Bay, which is Casey Rogers from, which is great. I think about Houston. I have no issue with still being aggressive. Lions and Tampa were second and third in terms of blitz rates this past year, because I think it fits our style and it fits our personnel. Our defensive backs, I think, thrive when we are aggressive. But I definitely still want to see the Lions, and here's the biggest challenge, is to see how fast Kelvin Shepard can tap into this. Be smart based on opponent, but I think the point of pre-snap, post-snap looking the same is the key here. When you have the versatility, like if you see Tampa Bay here with it being able to stack the line of scrimmage and then drop out, but not necessarily being overly aggressive against certain teams, but other teams being aggressive is the key, right? We can't be the same against everybody, but then being able to really lean into the fact that you have that versatility defensively. I think it has to match your personnel, and it does for us. Our defensive backs want to be physical. They want to throw off timing. So yes, continue to blitz, but making it look the same and being able to be unique for each opponent is the key for me. I'll leave it there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you, Prop, for watching, and I'm out.